All right, welcome to another Bull in the Basement. And this might be a sort of a niche episode, kind of, sort of. Although golf has expanded into the women ranks a lot lately. There's a lot more women playing golf, a lot more young girls playing golf, and expanding into, high school golf and college golf. And the LPGA gets bigger and bigger, and the American side for sure. But there's a lot of, weekend golfers out there, certainly, in Western New York that love the game. And joining me on this edition is Bret Blakely, the co-founder of Oncore Golf. Now let's be clear, everyone. Encore with an O.
Thank you. Yes.
very, very important that you know that. It's encoregolf.com. And first of all, great seeing you, man. I'm glad we could do this finally. We've been talking about it for a long time.
Definitely. Likewise. Yeah, it's great to finally be on.
You're one of the co-founders of Oncore Golf. And, when the whole thing popped up and I started hearing about this, I thought to myself, wait a minute, if there was like a golf ball manufacturer, I would probably expect it to be in the Southeast or the Southwest, someplace where people can play golf 24/7, 365. And instead, here's you guys starting one up in Buffalo. So take me back to the initial thought process. And you were just sick and tired with the golf balls you were playing. I want to make my own golf ball. Was it a bar napkin idea? You're sitting at the country club talking with buddies about how did it all start? What was the genesis of Oncore Golf?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a quite a long story, but I will definitely, give you the elevator version of it. So, first off, we just completed 10 years. So, 10 years in the industry. One of the things we're proud of is that, every golf company probably came and tried to, as a challenger brand within the first 5 years, they've all gone out of business. I mean, we're the longest standing challenger brand company outside of those big five that everybody knows right off the top of their head with billions of dollars. So, I mean, that's really cool. And it does all have to do with the very beginning. So 10 years ago, actually a little bit longer than that, 12 years ago, I was in New York City. And I had met a guy by the name of Steve Colton, who's the other co-founder, through a mutual friend in Buffalo. When I moved to New York, he said, "Hey, you graduated my sister in high school. Come and hang out with me and my buddies." So of course I meet their whole group, and Steve and his friends had played on the NYU golf team. The hollow metal core, which is the first ball that we came out with, and was the genesis of not only Encore but of the perimeter weighting concept, which is what our main innovation into the golf industry has been. That was actually an invention by an engineer that worked for my father at an advanced materials company called Nanodynamics. You've probably seen, they still have this sign up over on Furman Boulevard when you're driving to the Bills games, even though that's been long gone for well over a decade. But so I'd always thought that the idea of this hollow metal core ball was really interesting. I didn't grow up playing golf. I played every other sport. But I remember telling my golfing buddies about it. And then you fast forward to 2008. December 8th, 2008 is when the job market hit the whole country like a ton of bricks. And I was working at an international ad agency doing marketing. And Steve was on Wall Street at Deutsche Bank. And we both lost our jobs the exact same day. Our agency shut down within a week. Deutsche Bank was doing massive cutoffs. So the whole genesis was next day we thought, what the hell are we going to do? I had 6 months left on my lease. Steve had about the same when and he was living with his girlfriend at the time. And we had a cup of coffee and said, "Hey, what about that golf ball, that engineer that works for your father, 6 degrees of separation type thing? Maybe we can make some extra money while we're looking for work by marketing it." So I called my dad and I said, "Hey, what's going on with that golf ball?" And he's like, "Well, Doug, he's just, he's one of those guys that invents a million things in his garage. It's not doing much with it. You'd have to start a company." I said, "Oh, great. Well, you're a serial entrepreneur. How do you do that?" And kind of like, "Yeah, nice try." He said, "There's a place called the Small Business Association in pretty much every city. It's a bunch of old lawyers that'll give you free advice." So he's like, "Go down there and start putting the work in, figure it out." So for 6 months, we would go every day, 4 hours a day, talk to these guys, learned what bylaws were, learned how to write a business plan, put together a crappy website, came up with a name, and did all that in our apartment and down on the Small Business Association. And 6 months later, we pitched Doug and said, "Hey, this is kind of our idea of where we want to take this. It's a really unique product. And to what you, like you said, you know, even though we're in Buffalo now, at that point we were in New York, but right, all the other companies were out west. They said, we'll be the East Coast cool. We'll be the anti-titleists. We'll be the, you know, everything is going to be different, not only from the technology, but from the brand. And that's kind of where it started. And it took about 2 years for intellectual property to get moved over. And that meant that March of 2011 was our kickoff, our official kickoff. But I mean, everything was brewing for 2 years prior.
So you talked a little bit about, and I want to get into like the golf ball, and you mentioned why it is so unique. But man, to come into an industry that you mentioned has been dominated by, you don't have to name the names, but people know who they are, right?
Yep.
How nerve-wracking was that for you? You know, it's and ultimately was your plan to get it marketed basically to the weekend amateur golfer, or ultimately was your plan to, hey, let's get somehow this on the tour at some point?
I mean, really great questions. I think that there was a lot of things going on that allowed us to make such an idiotic move. One of the first guys that we brought on as like a consultant, you know, had run multiple ball companies, and he said the ball industry is probably one of the hardest in the world to penetrate, because it's essentially a monopoly between, you know, 5 gorillas and Goliaths. So, but we did know that we had a really unique golf ball that when people heard hollow metal core, they knew that that was something that did not exist prior. As to whether it was for a big tour play or anything like that, I mean, I think we were really naive in, you know, what golfers wanted. And we thought, hey, this is so different, people are just going to buy it. The problem was, it was not a great ball. It was very accurate. It was, you know, 40 to 50% straighter than any ball on the market. But because it had a hollow metal core, it meant that there was very little rubber around that core in between the cover and the core, which meant anyone with a decent swing speed would, you know, suffer from a loud ping when they hit it off the driver. And they would see a significant distance, you know, penalty. You were going to lose 25 yards minimum with this ball. So yeah, at that ball specifically was definitely for the really crappy golfer who could not keep it straight. And what was funny is that it was so polarizing, because you had the people that said, oh, this is trash, you know, because they were too good for it. And then you had people that, you know, I've never beaten my husband in 50 years, or, you know, a guy who's 70 and has a 70 mile per hour swing speed and loved it. You know, I can't hit this thing sideways. So it was polarizing. And although it wasn't a ball that was built for longevity in the industry, what it did do, it was an on-ramp for Oncore. You know, when we went to the PGA show that second or third year for the first time, Steve and I walked right up to Cobra Puma's booth because they didn't have a ball, asked where Bob Filion, the president, was, waited for him to stop talking to who he was, elevator pitched him, and he said, you know, we're always pitched about ball companies and everything. And he said, I got to admit, I don't even give him the time of day. He's like, but I like your hustle and I like your enthusiasm. He said, why don't you go home for a month, fly back out in a month, and come pitch me and the rest of the team. And it was one of those things where we learned a lot, because we went back to Carlsbad, pitched the top 5 execs. I mean, it was the biggest thing that we had ever done in our life. But the ball wasn't even conforming at that point. So that wasn't going to be a ball for Ricky. And, you know, they said, hey, when you guys have a ball, a tour quality ball that is ready for Ricky to play, you know, if we decide we want to get in the ball industry, we'll be happy to talk to you again. We may never get in the ball industry, but that, you know, and that kind of shifted the direction, and realizing that we can't make a living in this, you know, industry with a non-conforming ball, first off, and one that is not at a tour quality level. So that began the fight with the USGA, you know, to make sure our ball was on the conforming list, which was a 2-year effort, 2 rejections, and then finally appealing to the Executive Standard Committee, getting it overturned, becoming the second company in 100 years since 1926 to get them to rewrite the rules governing golf ball construction.
Impressive. Now, Ricky, for people that don't know, is Ricky Fowler, right? So,
yep.
Um, so where did it go from there in terms of Ricky Fowler and those guys?
Well, so we've always maintained a friendship. Bottom line is they're not getting into the ball business. They said if we do, they offered us jobs. Said, hey, would you come out and run? Doesn't sound like a bad gig, but we ended up being able to that historic accomplishment with the USGA conformance. That, along with an appearance on Power Pitch on CNBC, got the attention of John Calabria, who is our head engineer and has been for the last 5 years. And he was one of the main designers on, Pro V1. He was head of R&D at TaylorMade. He was one of the top, research and development guys at Callaway. Built the TPX5 with, some other guys. So he knows what he's doing when it comes to golf ball design. And he was on the verge of retiring from anything having to do with golf balls. And I think he was doing some stuff with NASA as well. And he, through a mutual connection, was told about our story and our accomplishment. And it kind of reinvigorated him. He's like, wow, now I have a whole new set of design parameters that I can develop innovative and high performance golf balls under. And he, when we talked to him, he said, I think I can make more traditional looking, and feeling golf balls, but still maintain perimeter weighting, which had so many benefits to it. It did have the benefits of, the reduction in side spin and control and accuracy. He felt like it could be a catalyst for enhanced distance performance. I mean, there were all sorts of things then going through his mind. So where we went from there was to develop, all right, we're going to get rid of the hollow metal core. We're going to basically double down on this perimeter weighting concept, which had been used in clubs and putters and drivers, and you see all sorts of performance benefits. Nobody had done it in golf balls. And so we were like, that's going to be our sweet, that's going to be our kind of thing that we latch onto. And so we developed the Avant, which was, our two-piece, low price point, slow swing speed. Then our Elixir was the first tour ball in 2017. And that was really a catalyst. I mean, our sales grew by 6 times that year. And, it won the gold on Golf Digest Hot List a few years in a row. And then, what was it? Last summer, two summers ago, we launched the Vero X1. And that's been our highest performance ball to date. And both the Elixir and Vero X1. And even though we don't have the high density particles in the two-piece, because there's no mantle layer, the way that we built the core, the oversized core in the center, even gives our two-piece some perimeter weighting. But the Elixir and the Vero, the tour balls, are the ones that have that, mostly instilled in them. And man, you can't find a longer ball than the Vero X1, and the Elixir is it's like butter off the face,
This is a lot of science, and people probably didn't realize there was that much science into golf balls. But it is important. Listen, a guy that's a 15 plus handicap, let's be honest, when it comes to golf, there's so many things that come into play when you're playing the game, right? I mean, the ball's one piece of it, obviously, but everything about your swing, obviously your golf clubs, your equipment, your training, all of it. So for, if you're a 15 plus handicap guy, I would submit for that guy, a golf ball is a golf ball is a golf ball. I mean, what's your argument to that?
So yes or no. I mean, for one, there's never going to be a ball that is so demonstrably better that it's going to change your game by 10 strokes. Because if there was, it would be illegal. It would not be conforming. You'd have a super ball that goes 400 yards if you just from looking at it funny. But the guy who's a 15 handicap and you say golf ball is a golf ball, well, that's where I'd say that's especially why they should be playing something with perimeter weighting, because they're probably the ones that are suffering the most from hitting it sideways. And if you have a ball that is giving you 15 to 30%, reduced dispersion on mishits, that's going to maybe make him from a 15 to a 12 or a 10 over time, I mean, part of the reason that we did start the company was to try and, take the elitism out of golf, try and make sure that we were growing the game by making products that were high performance and still able to perform well for amateurs. So like one of the things I love about the Elixir especially is that is a tour ball that any guy on the tour would play and perform well with and love. Yet it's not going to not perform for an amateur golfer for a 15 handicap. And not many balls do that. I mean, most guys that are 15, 25 handicap, they shouldn't be playing a Pro V1 or Pro V1X because there's a lot of performance deficiencies. I mean, the reason there's a Pro V1 and a Pro V1X is because one is soft around the greens, but not long off the tee. The X is long off the tee, but not as soft around the greens. Well, I mean, both the Elixir and the Vero kind of have the best of both worlds. And a lot of it does have to do with the science of the perimeter weighting and the core, compositions that we've done. But, we wanted to have a suite that kind of spoke to every skill set, every price point, every skill set of golfer. And, like you said, a 15 handicap, a ball is a ball is a ball. But I think ours, does have its benefits. And a ball is the only piece of equipment that you're using on every single hole. You're not using your driver on every hole. You're not using certain clubs on every hole, but the ball is. So finding something that enhances what you do well and reduces what you don't, I think is, kind of what we've been trying to do with our innovation is, and really make high performance, patented technology, innovative, driven golf balls.
And this is sort of a silly question, but I know there's robotics used in R&D, right?
Yep.
So do you simulate bad golf swings ever?
Yes.
Or go ahead.
You do both. So there's an Iron Byron out at Golf Labs. That's kind of the industry standard. Gene Perenni is the guy who runs it. It's a robotic swing arm, and you can literally dial in any kind of swing: steep, shallow, fast, slow, miss hits, straight shots, And we do. We try and make sure that we have a nice across the board set of data points that represent a variety of golfers. But like you said, the amount of variables that go into a golfer and their swing, there's probably an infinite amount of ways a golf ball can be hit. Because as you know, when you're going up and you're thinking your foot positioning, you're thinking about when you break your wrist, you're thinking about keeping your arms straight, tempo, like there's just so many things that go wrong. So what we do is we try and go after, kind of the industry recommended variety of swing, techniques and just look at what our golf balls are doing compared to the others.
The only problem with the robot though is the one thing that you hinted at, right? The game is so psychological that regardless of how good or bad a player you are, you can absolutely psych yourself out on the tee or in the fairway or on the green anytime, right?
Well, isn't it interesting? You look at the guys who are at, you could even go down to like college, D3 to professional, but especially when you're looking at like Korn Ferry to PGA, the difference in their actual skill is minimal. It is what's in between the ears. It's, both can shoot a 66 on any given day. One guy can shoot a 66 on most days. The other guy can shoot a 66, once every 5 times, which is not enough. Another guy who's, again, can shoot 66, but maybe it's one out every 10. So he was the D3. Like it's unreal with golf how that has got to be the most important element, is just being able to maintain consistency, to kind of dial in that talent and that muscle memory to not waver.
I was wondering, has there ever been, and I think it would be interesting, and I'm sure it's been talked about, but has there ever been a sort of a taste test? Like, let's say you had DJ and JT and DeChambeau and Koepka and Schauffele. I'll just throw out 5 guys, right? And you put 5 different balls unmarked on 5 tees, or maybe you give them, 5 drivers, you give them 5 irons and 5 wedges or what, 5 putts, let's say, with unmarked balls. What are the odds those guys know what balls they're hitting?
What's the odd that they would know?
Yeah. Based on the results of what they did hitting those shots on either on the practice green or on the practice tee.
I bet you they'd know if they were hitting the ball that they play currently, because they probably have it at that level. You are so dialed in. That's like knowing what perfume your wife wears. You know that smell. And if you don't, you're out. Uh, but
especially around Christmas, good timing.
Right. Yeah. But, so what's funny about what you're asking though, is one of the things that we have been kicking around doing, is kind of like a Pepsi challenge of golf balls. Because we know that we have the best in class. I mean, the Vero X1 just outperformed the Pro V1, Pro V1X. Golf EQ said it was the highest score they had ever given a golf ball. So, I mean, we know that we have balls that are as good and better than the top of the line in the world. And our thought was, hey, let's get 500 people, get unmarked balls, let them hit all of them. And we're confident that, golfers of low handicap to mid to high, everything, that at the end, I am sure, because our data shows it, because the amount of people would say, man, these other balls are going in my shag bag now, because these are way better than I ever thought, was possible from a company that wasn't, one of the big guys. That Pepsi challenge is something that we want to do, because I think although a professional might be able to know, they still might see, they still might have favorable reviews on it. I'm positive they would have favorable reviews, but yeah, I guess it's a two-part question. I think that they would be able to know their ball. I don't know that they would be able to decipher the others. And part of that is because at that level, they're not playing with anything else, because they can't afford to not know they need to know their ball like the back of their hand, because every shot, depends on it, which is why it's so hard to get these guys to even consider testing something else. You have a very small window that they're in the off season. They have to not have a ball deal, and they have to be willing to even make a change, and then they have to start testing. And we know that better than anyone, because we do have a few tour players, Eric Compton and Andy Pope, and they're playing in PGA events, but we're going after some really big names right now to try and lock down in 2022 or 2023. And, we're fighting against the calendar, and, we're fighting against, not being one of the big name brands, even though we're able to, point to all the data and point to all this. So, we're hoping that we can make a really cool announcement, sooner than later about, one or a few top 50 guys, coming on the Team Oncore.
Yeah, I was going to say, so for you to get, let's say, a major winner to endorse, or, a guy that's in the top 25 or top 50 FedEx points or the money list or whatever you want to call it, obviously it has to be guys that are maybe coming out of a contract, right? Or guys that don't have one. And then beyond that, it's money, it's connections, and probably a little bit of luck, right? To latch onto one of these guys or a couple of these guys.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the nice thing is, like, now that Eric Compton has been playing, I mean, he literally took less money to switch from Titleist to us, which is great. I mean, that was kind of a great validation of and then he, played in 3 PGA tournaments, right? The Honda Classic, the Schwab Challenge. I can't remember what the other one was. He placed 20th in the one. Like, he did really well. He loves the ball.
And by the way, for those of you that don't know, please look up Eric Compton's story. It's absolutely remarkable beyond the golf ball.
Professional athlete ever to have 2 heart transplants and still play at a professional level. I was literally with him last week, the day after the Bills game. We were shooting a commercial with him and a few other of our celebrity ambassadors and tour pros and everything, and just a good guy, hell of a golfer. And so he's actually been helping us in the development of the Vero X2, which will be coming out with this year. And so we just had a meeting prior to our little discussion here about how do we get people to try, get them in the door to try. I mean, we have established a very good reputation within the industry. And it's as big of an industry as it is. It's a small industry. When we meet a lot of the pros, hey, I mean, we've talked to Ricky. Hey, how's Oncore doing? I'm hearing you guys all the time. Congrats on the success. He's best friends with the guy with Titleist guy's son, so it's like he's
right.
Anything else.
Right.
But I think, it's a mix of money. It's a mix of luck and timing. Part of what we want to do, though, is kind of like what happened with Josh Allen and with Zeke. We don't pay them a dime. A lot of people think that we paid Josh Allen to come on board. No, he invested he invested into Encore. Zeke invested into Encore. A lot of our big name, they invested rather than the other way around, which is the type of person we want, because we want them invested in the company on an emotional level too. We want them to voluntarily be talking about Encore because they love who we're about, and we try and make it like a big family. So one of the things that we're hoping to do is, have a conversation with one of these guys and say, hey, how about, maybe it's a little bit of equity we give you. So this is partly your company, rather than shelling out $2 million or whatever and hope that you have a good year. Like, we'll develop a ball with you that is tailor-made, for you.
But you can't say that.
Yeah, I should say poor choice of words. I should have known better. But yeah, we're trying to, always be thinking outside the box, get creative with any kind of relationship that we have. And we feel like that's kind of where the next step for us is to get a top guy.
Well, I have this, there we go. We can see that.
Love it.
And then and so, yeah.
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 Now, have you seen the new one?
I have not seen the new one.
The Air Allen, it's the hurdle from Kansas City.
Here I am looking into my camera to look at. What am I doing? Here, look, see?
Yep.
That's awesome.
I'll get you some Air Allen ones.
Cool. So talk a little bit about, Josh's involvement. How did that even, he's a good player, right? And
player. Yep. Yeah, he so what was it? Season 2 of his, whatever it was, that 2018. I'd gotten an email from his agent, T, and who's super nice too, great guy. And he said, hey, Josh is a huge golfer, or he said, I'm Josh Allen's agent, quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. I'm like, yeah, I know who Josh Allen is.
Right.
And he's like, Josh asked me to reach out because he heard that there was a golf ball company in Buffalo. He's obsessed with golf. Would love just to maybe come down to the office on the bye week and meet you guys. So, inside I'm like a little kid and just like, yes, please, bring it. And so he came in on the bye week that year, and it was really funny because I told my mom, who's a huge Bills fan, I was like, you might want to come in around noon or 1 o'clock or whatever that day. I was like, Josh is coming in, and I was like, we got to meet with him, but you can say hello. And so he comes in, and she's like, I just want to tell you that I'm so happy you're in Buffalo. I'm so happy you're our QB. We just love you. He goes, well, I love you too. And he gives her a hug, and I go, stop hitting on my mom, bro. And, and so from there, it was like, just all of course I'm excited as hell. And it was just like, we kind of hit it off right off the bat. So we met with him and T and just kind of went through all the things that we were doing, told him the story like I've been telling you today. And I remember T looks at him, he goes, how about this? He's like, have you ever heard a story or been in a meeting like this? Josh goes, never in my life. And he's like, this is just awesome. He's like, I can't believe what you guys have done with such few people in this industry and everything. He's like, I think I definitely would like, to get involved. So season went on, and by the end of the year, he was like, yeah, let's make something happen. And it's just been great. I mean, he is the nicest guy in the world. He truly is obsessed with Buffalo. I mean, he wants to spend the rest of his life here, wants to be the Bills QB forever for sure. And he is a great golfer, and he's just a lot of fun to be around, a lot of fun to hang with, a lot of fun to golf with. You ever golf with him, you're going to get 18 holes of impersonations and movie quotes. It's hilarious, absolutely hilarious. So no, it's been fun. Buffalo is rabid for this team. They recognize the character of Josh and how much he cares about this city. You see how we support anything that brings a positive light. And I mean, our Josh Allen golf balls have been the highest selling custom ball that we do by a landslide. I mean, it's absurd. We're actually on Tuesday, we're getting a picture. He's taking a picture down on the field of our second check to him for $15,000. It's going to the Patricia Allen Fund, that because every dozen of either the Bills Mafia or Josh Allen Mafia, can't say Bills, right? Or the Air Allen, $5 of every dozen goes to O'Shea.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I foresee, and you have a marketing background, obviously, as you mentioned early on in this conversation, I foresee you doing something where instead of the bucket challenge where the quarterback's at the 10-yard line, he's got to, throw it into the bucket in the cornerback of the end zone. I foresee him having a lob wedge or something with an Encore golf ball doing the same thing. Make that happen.
Yeah, I love it. Yep. I love it.
Well,
what's really funny too is have you seen the commercial that we've ran it on television a few times with Josh and everything? And that was just basically going out to California, hang out for a day. And I'm like, we do need content. I'm just going to bring a videographer and just record the day. Like nothing was scripted. Not one part of that. Nothing he said was scripted. It was just, hey, let's see what kind of footage we get. And it turned out awesome. But what was funny is on like hole 3, he's a showman. He just does all these things impromptu. He just puts his clubs down and he looks at our camera guy and he goes, I don't need golf clubs to play golf. And he chucks the ball I don't know how many hundred some yards out to get on the green. I'm like, that's funny. And then the whole thing at the end of the commercial where it's like, hey, Josh, what we got going on? And he's like, and he's looking at the camera and he's like, I'm playing my, Oncore VRX1 Bills Mafia ball, baby. That's all I play. And then he did the no-look putt and he came within an inch of hitting it. That was completely random. And everyone's like, wait, why didn't you just do it again until he made it? I was like, I think it's better because that was literally like authentic. That was the one putt he did completely off, didn't plan it or anything. And I'm like, the guy almost makes a 25, 30-foot putt, not even looking. It was great.
That's phenomenal. One last thing before I let you go, I've already taken up way too much of your time. There was talk, I want to say maybe in the last couple of years, about with tons of simulators popping up here in Western New York, really cool, like sort of simulator bars popping up. The golf domes are always busy, but there was talk within the last couple of years about a sort of a Top Golf style, coming to Buffalo and setting up. And I know you guys somehow were associated in that conversation, I thought.
That's our project. Yeah.
Okay. And can you let us know anything about what might or could be happening and if there is a timeline on it?
Yeah. So we had it ready to go prior to COVID. It was actually supposed to break ground in April or May of that year of 2020. Funding was in place. And of course, COVID hits and we weren't sure. The people who were funding weren't sure if there was ever going to be anything where that business model is to pack a ton of people into it, close together, nonstop. That was like the last thing that would be a COVID friendly type of business. And so of course that kind of put a damper on those things because it's only about a year-long build we expect because of design and everything. So over the last couple of years, we've had our development team still working on it full time. Some things have changed as far as, potential location. We're hoping to, we all I can say is it's still going to happen. We don't have an official timeline yet because that's really a function of when we get, funding in place and everything, but we've redesigned the game board. Looks insane. There's going to be some really cool elements. Again, this is going to be better than Top Golf because of the technology that we're instituting. It's not going to be a cookie cutter. We're looking at several cities outside of Buffalo that we're going to be doing this in too. And each one will be unique. Each one will have its own local flair, which I think is something that isn't happening right now. So we're super excited about that. We're all I can say is we hope it starts yesterday. But we're still 100% moving forward. Just waiting for all the things to come together that we need.
So anyone that's a golf fan that's watching this, for me, I like sort of getting in on ground floors of things and then watching them expand. I mean, you guys have obviously been doing it for 10 years and doing great to this point, but my gosh, you are on the cusp of some really big, super great things to the point where people are gonna be like, holy cow. We knew this was here, but now it's here. Now it's here. Wow. And it's Buffalo. So this is really cool. And I'm glad we could do this here so that, a year, 2, 3 years from now, whenever we do this again, we're talking about even more bigger and better things for you guys. But congratulations so far, man. This is awesome stuff. I'm going to get more of these clearly. Christmas gifts for sure for folks that are, oh, damn it. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Now they know. At any rate, man, great to see you. Thanks for doing this, and have a great holiday, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Yeah, you too. Let's definitely get together soon.
Sounds good, man. Thanks.
Take care.
Oncore Golf with an O.com.